we've had such a wonderful week-long training, mastermind training, since we actually come off of vision-seeking time. And in what we do with vision-seeking is actually isolate ourselves away from usual circumstances and environments. And then we allow ourselves to just be very open in how we observe thought, what's happening around us, including the elements, and just sort of how does nature become the orchestra of our day. No TV, no radio, nothing that we can turn on or off, just be present with. And in that, different things begin to show up. Obviously, some clarity of thought, and then obviously knowing where we're going and how it's going to go. And then we make some decisions, and those decisions become postulates. How is a postulate different than a goal? It says it's already done. The goal says you're going to try. The goal says that you're going to put things into some motion or some plan, and you're going to give it all you got if you're really even doing that. But the postulate says it's already done. You've given it your word, and so it is. And then that's what we do in all that we train and how I live and how most of my associates live. So we postulate. We don't necessarily set goals. So when we come off of vision-seeking time, we have some clarity that we would normally have in the congested way we live in the multiple level of activities that we either orchestrate or lead. And so in doing that, then we move right into about 10 days of masterminding. And that masterminding has taken place by making sure that we're changing locations, never having anything familiar, being uncomfortable in every state, meaning we have not done it this way before. We have not been here this way before. So then there's these constant adjustments that we have to make. We have to adjust to that location, maybe to new people coming in, maybe somebody getting added, somebody leaving. You know, the constant change that we're in, the flux of things. And then with that, we've traveled to multiple locations. We've been where there's actually fires burning and just north of Sedona. We've been where there's been festive activities where people are celebrating Memorial Day holiday. So I've managed to put all who've come for the training into circumstances that actually shows the complexity of their life. It's very easy to go to a training and end up being very much put in the ideal environment to take on your learning. And then you sit there and you kind of become comfortable, and out of that comfort begins to be all of the chemistry that starts shutting off the neurons, breaking down the actual absorbing of what you're learning. So putting this particular training into action, dragging the people around, taking them to every place, putting them into any kind of environment that's just natural, everyday, ordinary activity all around us. Seeing how they can hold the attention at that point. How are they holding to the changes that they really want to make in what they're doing? Actually understanding the sciences, the spiritual sciences that they've learned. Understanding how very, very invisible the quantum level of energy is that totally manipulates everything in their life. To actually give them this and the understanding of this invisible field that they exist in begins to allow you to have information. And that information changes our chemistry. And we can then become somebody we want to be, somebody we feel is the purpose of what we are. And we stay focused on the fact that due to this fingerprint that makes us individual and unique of ourselves, then that means I can't role model myself after anybody else. This is not about any of the people in this group or in association with any of the work that I do and train. You don't role model yourself to me. I've got Perisha covered very good, trust me. Now it's about finding out the who you are, and let's get you totally in contact with that. Let's you performing to the maximum of that. Let's you see the success in health, wealth, and happiness of that. So to understand it is to have a choice that you've never had before. To know that not only what you do is going on in your brain and the neuron, because we've got a lot of people out here talking about mind and what the mind plays in success and everything. But here's be the facts those decisions are made in the neurons of your heart. So see, it's not just a muscle, it's neurons. And those neurons fire more powerful than anything in your head. And it is this that activates this. And when the brain starts, it begins to move instantly, moving everything within the systems of the body. And then the body performs. So you have to understand then how important it is that when people say follow your heart, there is a truth in that. Not only a truth, but a power in that. So allowing yourself to begin to move and think and be like that is what we're talking about. And what we're going to have Marianne and Mia talk about is they want to share with you some of the realization they've gotten in the training, in actually participating in the training to lead other trainings, is to actually know what the chemistry and what the very molecular structure of our physical body is in the play and the game that we call life. If life is not an adventure, beloveds, it's not worth playing. So we're going to begin to bring a lot of this to the front here. And which one of you would like to begin to talk first?
Well, I'd like to talk first. It's so exciting to know that no matter what my or your history is, we can change our reality simply through some of the things we're sharing today. And what I have found completely profound is the fact that at our base, so if you look at our bodies, when we study the body and go down into the atom, within an atom, all we have is space and energy. It's simply information. So scientists have found that we're 99.999% energy and only 0.111% matter. And even that matter is only temporary. So I think it's important, I felt it's important going through my own transitions, is to understand the atom at this core level. And then we'll discuss further the chemistry of the body so that you, excuse me, I'll just take a drink.
Okay, while you're doing that, I want to correct something that you just said. We are not 1% anything. Okay, we are 99.999% energy, and we are 0.10 matter. So you gave somebody 11 there, and it's not 11, it's 1. Yeah.
I don't know where that 11
yeah, you
came
needed
from.
that drink of water. Yeah.
I didn't need a drink of water.
All right.
Excuse me. So at the atom level, we're simply energy. And if you can imagine that an atom, for a second imagine the atom is the size of a Jeep, and within the atom we have electrons. So we simply have a nucleus and electrons. And an electron in the atom would be the size of a chickpea. So just visualize that for a second and imagine how many chickpeas would it take to fill up a Jeep. Now that's the relative size of an atom. And if you think about space within the atom, let's imagine now that Jeep is the nucleus or the middle of the atom, and the chickpea now is on the edge of the field of the atom. Now that atom's distance is 85,000 square miles.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's 3.6 or 4 times around the Earth. Just imagine. And that's not just linear. We're talking square miles, so that's in all directions.
That's a whole lot of humus with that
That's
chickpea.
a lot of space. So when we take one atom and we join that with another atom, now we have what's called a molecule. And once these atoms join, there's a field that they join in. They overlap information, and there's they become one with a field of information that now sits around them, a consciousness that's around this atom. And if you take 2 atoms and put them together, then you take more atoms. Take 2 atoms, you've got a molecule. You increase the complexity, and you take more molecules, you put them together. Now you've got chemistry. And if you bring chemistry together, you've got a cell. And you bring cells together, you've got tissues of the body. And you bring tissues together, you've got organs. And organs become systems of the body, and systems are respiratory, digestive. You can imagine all the systems in your body. It's so profound, isn't it? Just
Very
how,
cool.
and within all that, it's simply space.
And space is really information. Space is not something that we measure or call a thing. We often speak of space as empty and void, and it's not. It's information.
Information, intelligence. And even the electrons in an atom only emerge temporarily. They only come with thought or observance. So even they're not fixed. So profound.
That's the advantage of learning to be in a state of change without getting hysterical or dramatic. I mean, uncomfortable you're going to be, yes, because if you don't know, you're learning it, okay? But it's so temporary. Any state is, and it's really what causes the depressions and the chemistries get into being very unhealthy when we actually allow ourselves to try and hold to something and put it in a fixed position. So if we know then that change is taking place without our permission, if it has to, it's still going to happen. So if we learn to understand that it's so temporary, then we don't feel we lost something by going forward. We always feel we're leaving something behind in order to go forward, and that's a mindset. And if we can just realize that it's happening in the present, and that something may come over here, like you're sitting here to my right or to my left, but you didn't go away. But if I shut up and you talk, you're present, and I'm still. You know what I'm saying? So if we can learn that without seeing it as such a horrendous fear-packed experience, and that we don't allow ourselves to get real unnerved over change and difference, then the adventure becomes exciting.
And I think for a lot of us, we've been caught up in what's called the survival mechanism, and that's just simply a fear-based fight or flight mechanism. And within that, we get so caught up in simply knowing ourselves as the body, and we forget who we are fundamentally. And so we just think about when we're going to get up, when we're going to eat, go to the toilet, who we're going to talk to, where we're going to go next. And it's all fixed and habitual, which you'll talk about a bit more. And so when we identify with the body, the frequency or coherence of the body becomes more turbulent, and that's what creates disease. So it's when we're caught up in these survival mechanisms, we're actually bringing disease to the body, because we lower the frequency of the body and become more matter and less energy. And if you simply imagine a situation where you've got a lot of drummers and they're all beating out of time, you've got a lot of instruments there and it's all going off and it doesn't sound pretty, that's the sort of feel of what we're going for when we say incoherence or turbulence in the body. And sometimes it only takes a couple of good musicians in that whole picture to start to bring some order and some rhythm, and then every other musician around can come into that and bring coherence and a frequency that's lighter, pleasurable. So would you like to talk a bit more
I'd love
about
to build on what you've both talked about this morning as well, especially that point with the chemistry and getting stuck, because when we look at how a thought can actually turn into, well, it carries an emotion, and that emotion actually turns into a physical entity. So it's not just, it's not just a something, as we said. This information becomes matter. So when you have a thought, it carries emotion with it. And I'm sure while you're listening to this, if you think of anything, feel in your body, what is it? Something you've thought about? Are you happy, sad? These emotions come with thought.
Yes, very much so.
Once that moves into the body system, including the brain, it goes through part of the brain called the hypothalamus, which produces a small, well, again, we're talking tiny because we're talking something that goes inside cells. So at the very small level, we have a piece of matter called a peptide, which moves through the blood system and then locks into our cell. And if you're doing same old, same thing all the time, what happens is your cells just become hungry mouths for that same thing. So if you're always feeling a bit depressed or a bit grumpy, or you're always needing to be super happy, these cells, that's what it's asking for. So you've got to keep then producing those environments around you. You want sameness. And you can feel that sameness makes you feel happy, but it's only because your body doesn't want to change. It's not even that intellectually you may want to change, but your body does not like change. So whatever the cells are asking for is what your body is going to send a message back up saying, no, that's different. That's not what I'm not prepared to take that on as a cell, as a physical level. So let's move away from this change. And so we're actually programmed from our body to move away from change, which means moving away from growth. But the other aspect of that is when you're not changing and not growing, you're actually getting, as Marianne said to you, you're more in the body and less energy, but you're also aging far more rapidly. So there's aging as well as the potential for illness. And the reason that is that little mechanism we mentioned where the thought carries an emotion and goes into the cell. If it's that same piece of DNA inside the cell which is triggered all the time, then the proteins that cell makes become lesser quality. And then our skin isn't so vibrant and elastic. Our hair may become more brittle. So to keep yourself youthful and happy and able and adaptable, it's essential that we welcome change and that we know that we can do that ignoring the potential uncomfortable feeling that we have that our body's telling us. And the great thing is that as our cells divide and grow, if you haven't done one of those things you always did, the cells no longer ask you for it. So that uncomfortable feeling is temporary. So that as we move through, we can move over these things as long as we say, okay, body, I know that's you. And we choose to be more from our energy level, which, as we've heard, is 99.999% of us. We can then step forward, embrace change, stay youthful and healthy.
Yes, and what you shared, Mia, here is letting people know, okay, after 40, 50, 60 years of my life of actually welcoming and creating change, because I knew that had to be my goal, okay, you come to an acceptable place with it, but still not comfortable in as much as you can relax. You have to be turned on and totally alert and taking in all of the changing circumstances. And that chemically, you have to know how that's happening so that you don't go through all of the particular outcomes that you discussed. So we want you to take this and see how you're going to use it in your day. And know that as you adjust it, and just understand, you know, other than the 10, 15, or 20 minutes we may have taken here to talk to you, we have given you information that now has changed your whole cellular understanding and now makes you a new being. Just putting in that new information. Just you having some coherence of what we've just said has changed the chemistry and the way you feel and the way you will act and the way you will be. And for us, the way we want you to be is healthy, wealthy, and happy. And we thank you for this time. We'll be talking to you again.